Hey guys, what's going on? So in this video, we'll be learning about how to handle errors using try, except, and finally block. Now, a lot of time when you are developing an application for end users, you don't want to show the error details, which might actually cause the end users to spook out, but not for us developers, right? So instead, what you can do is handle these errors that have been produced or thrown and display more user-friendly errors like, something went wrong or anything like that. To show you what exactly I mean, let me go ahead and try to concatenate, say, a string with an integer. If I go ahead and run it, it will definitely throw me an error saying type error, can only concatenate string, not into string. All of this information are useful for us developers, but not for the end users. So imagine a person is using this application and we actually put a erroneous code, something like this, and suddenly when the Python code executes this statement, his application prints something like this. The user would completely be perplexed as to what exactly happened. So to avoid such situation and in order to handle such errors, we make use of try, except, and finally block. Okay, so let me go ahead and clear the screen. And our try, except, and finally block looks something like this. Okay, so as you can see, we have try block, except block, else, and finally block. Now, most of the time, we handle errors through only try and except blocks. Now we'll be looking at else, and finally very soon, as soon as we finish this example. Okay, so we had this code right earlier, print. Okay, so this code might throw us the error. So we put all those suspicious codes inside the try block. So let me go ahead and remove this pass. And inside except block, we can handle the above errors by, say, print operation not possible. Now if I go ahead and run it, remember the earlier time the output was really messed up and showed lots of unwanted details which might spook out the end users. Now this time it only print out operation not possible. Now let's actually take a look what exactly happened here. So many of you might have figured it out. The statement inside try block threw us an error, definitely because this is invalid operation. Concatenating a string with the integer object is completely invalid. And this error or these errors, as we will be covering how to handle multiple errors too shortly, are caught inside this except block, and we handled the error by printing out a neat message saying operation not possible. And after printing out this message, it completely went out of this try except block. So let me actually go ahead and to show you, let me print done. If I run it again, you notice it will print me operation not possible and done. So which means that it completely came out of this try except block. Cool, let me go ahead and delete. Now you can actually catch multiple errors. So let's say, for example, we have another statement which might be actually erroneous. So remember I told you earlier that whatever erroneous statements that you think might produce an error, you put them inside a try block. And let's suppose we print an undefined variable. So let's go ahead and print out an undefined variable. Now here, as you can see that the variable is actually undeclared, and it will definitely produce an error, right? So let me actually go ahead and clear the screen. Okay, so to catch multiple exceptions, there are generally two ways. The first way of handling multiple exceptions is via using a single except block, as we have done here right now, which is actually least preferred. And the second way is via introducing multiple except block, which we'll be deeply covering very shortly. Okay, so let's explore this first case. Okay, so one thing to remember is that as soon as try blocks detects an error, it looks for its corresponding handler in the except blocks. And once it finds a suitable except block, it executes the statement inside the except block and completely comes out of this try except block. Also, this default except block handles all kinds of errors. Therefore, when an error is encountered in the first statement of the try block, it will look for a corresponding except block which can actually handle this error. So as I told you before, except block by default handles all sorts of errors, and in this case it will print operation not possible, and it will come out of this entire try block without continuing with the statements inside the try. So whenever we encountered this error, it executed this print operation and came out without executing this. So to show you that, let me actually go ahead and comment this one out. So we know that this will actually produce an error, and let me actually go and run it. So in this case also, since variable is undeclared, this still prints out operation not possible. That's one of the reasons why we do not prefer the general except block, since its response is same for all sorts of errors. So when we actually went on to handle this concatenation problem, it printed as operation not possible. And when we actually went on to uh, handle this error, which is undeclared variable, it still printed operation not possible. Now to troubleshoot this, we make use of the second case, and that is using multiple except blocks. And here one thing to note is that each exception has a class or name associated with it. You address the each specific exceptions first, and then at the end you address the general ones. Okay, so you will understand what I just told right now. So as I told you, every except block has a name associated with it. Let me go ahead and handle this concatenation problem. So we actually have a name for this kind of error, concatenation error, and which is called as the type error. So we can say except type error, and inside it we can print out concatenation not possible. An exception which deals with undeclared variables, we have an error called the name error. So we can make use of that name error, and inside it we can tell variable not declared. So what these excepts blocks are dealing with is, the first except block deals with any type error exception. So in this case, concatenation is kind of a concatenation of string and integer type is of type error, and for that exception it will print out concatenation not possible. And for any exception which is actually dealing with undeclared variable, or you can say name error, it will actually print out variable not declared. So let me actually go ahead and print this one. So earlier in this case, we noticed that it only printed operation not possible, right? So if I go ahead and run it, this time it printed concatenation not possible. Reason? The very first line is a type error. So as soon as it threw a type error exception, it found its suitable except block and printed this out and came out of this entirely without even dealing with this next statement inside. Remember I told you earlier? And if I go ahead and comment this one out, you would see now for the name error, it will print variable not declared. Now these are how you actually deal with specific exceptions. Now if you remember what I told earlier, that you address the specific exceptions first, and then at the end you address the general ones. So what do I mean by general ones? So several cases may arise that while developing a program, I may not remember several exception names, right? So in those cases, I can make use of the exception block and print something went wrong. Now, so to show you that, let me actually go ahead and comment this type error. So because I don't know what exactly type error is, so when the try reaches this statement, it will throw us a type error which is not handled at all. And by convention, we actually mention all the specific errors first and then the general errors last. So I have mentioned the general error, which is default except at the last. So it will scan all the errors inside the except block, and it didn't find a specific exception. And finally, since there are no specific exception and by default the except block handles all sort of exceptions, it will print out something went wrong. So let me go ahead and run it. There you go. So let me go ahead and uncomment this one and comment name error, and let me show you that as well. And let me go ahead and comment this type error. And in this case as well, since we have actually not handled the name error specifically, it will go ahead and print out the general exception, which is something went wrong. Cool. Now, as I told you that there for every exception, we have a name associated with it. Well, for default except block, we have a default name called exception. So we can use exception, and this is the name for all the general exception that we handle. Okay, so let me go ahead and clear the screen. Cool. So far we learned about the try and except blocks. Now let's take a look at this else block. So let me go ahead and uncomment it very quickly. Ever wondered what happens when no errors are raised in try block? So let me go ahead and put a valid statement, say like variable equals to hello. So definitely it won't print any sort of error, right? Because it's a valid statement. Well, in those cases, if no errors are produced, it will hit the else block directly, and we can print something like no errors detected. And let me go ahead and run it to show you that. There you go. Since there are no errors produced, it will directly hit the else statement and come out. And finally, we have this finally block. So let me go ahead and uncomment this one. Let me actually put a space in between. So unlike else block, finally block gets executed whether the error is encountered or not. So regardless of the condition, whether the try block has actually encountered an error or not, finally block still gets executed. So let me go ahead and print I have reached the end of the try except block. Yeah, so let me actually cover the case in which there are no exceptions produced. If I run it, you can see it produces it printed out no errors detected, because else statement runs if there are no errors detected, and finally statement also ran, since I told you that finally statement also runs regardless whether there is exception thrown or not thrown. In this case, this printed this as well. So to show you that, let me actually go ahead and print out where, which is actually an error itself. Now in this case, it will print the variable not declared since it's a name error, and it will print out the finally, which is I have reached the end of the block. So if I go ahead, you'll notice that variable not declared is printed out and I have reached end of the try except block. See ya. So why do we use finally? Well, we use finally as a cleanup action since it is executed at the end under all circumstances. Now, as I told you earlier and before, that basic error handling only uses try and except blocks, but you may use try, except, finally, and even else as per your needs. Okay, so what if you want to raise exceptions under specific circumstances? Suppose say, let me actually go ahead and type try var equals to hello, and if var equals to hello, then throw some error. Now, is there any way to do this? Well, we do. So to raise an exception here manually, all you have to do is type the raise keyword and the exception name that you want to call. So let's actually call the general exception here. And if I go ahead and run this, it will print out. Okay, like to not to complicate things, let me go ahead and actually delete finally and else. Okay, so here we actually manually call the exception because exception handles all sort of errors, and this is not an exception actually, but we want to call an exception under this circumstance. So in those cases, you can actually manually raise an exception by using the raise keyword and mentioning how to handle this exception name over here. So in this case, it will print out something went wrong. Now similarly, you can also accept a type error which you have handled over here, and if I go ahead and run it, it will print out concatenation not possible. Alright guys, that's all for this video. I hope you really understood about handling exceptions, and if you really like this video, you can support us by hitting the thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel, and you can also support us by spreading the words to others who really want to learn more about Python and other tech stack. We would be gladly able to help them, and this would also help our channel to grow as well. Alright guys, see you in the next lecture.